Now, since the writers are going about tackling these broad political issues so carelessly, the actual overarching message that Season 3 promotes is not only flawed, but ill-conceived, asinine, and just outright dumb. So one of the prominent story arcs throughout the season is the school's new head teacher, Mrs. Haddock, I think it is. Mrs. Haddock, yeah. Like her predecessor, Mr. Groff, Mrs. Haddock is supposed to serve as a primary antagonist for our main characters. An oppressive adult symbol for our lovable, rebellious teens to foil. Mr. Groff's shtick was fairly straightforward, overly strict and proper, no empathy to speak of. Because of him, the school has almost no sex education curriculum to speak of. We later find out he doesn't pork his wife, so he's sexually repressed. That eats away at him and he extends that repression to the students at his school. He seems to have a zero tolerance for any talk of sex on campus. This only causes the students to be all the more sexually minded. It's not subtle or original. I think the actor saves it from being utterly one-dimensional, but you get what the character represents. Sexually repressed, embittered, resentful, rigid, strict, negative, patriarchal figure. Now what does this new head, Mrs. Haddock, represent? Honestly, it's so vague. It feels like they were trying their hardest to not repeat similar traits to Mr. Groff. She's essentially cracking down on student individuality and expression. She's always on about professionalism and doing things properly. The thing is, until a later instance in the season where all of a sudden shit gets real fucked up real quickly, she doesn't really do anything that oppressive. For the first few episodes of the show, this oppression we're supposed to be seeing imposed on the school by this new head is this pathetic, flaccid excuse of an overbearing new ruling system. So I'm going to run through all of the things that she does to the school and wait until you find something that's genuinely oppressive. One of the first things she does is paint a line on the floor of all the school walkways. Students must walk single file. Line's a bit weird, but single file seems reasonable. Like car lanes, people will get to where they're going quicker. It'll reduce accidents because teenagers are fucking dumb like that. She also implements this new set of rules that are supposed to be really worrisome for what might come later. So let's have a look at these rules, shall we? No smoking? Well, yeah, it's a fucking school. No chewing gum? Yeah, that's fine. No running? Yeah. No fighting? That's a given. No piercings? Like, all these were just rules at my school. Like, this is the norm. I really don't see what the big deal is. No swearing? Also a given. Arrive on time? Fucking hell. No bullying. No coloured hair dye. Please walk in single file, yeah. This is like default school rules. Are you telling me that fighting, bullying, and not arriving on time were all allowed at Moordale Elementary prior to these rules being put up? The teachers in the show are encouraged to be such cucks. The argument for the no piercings and no coloured hair dye rules being wrong would be because it inhibits self-expression, I guess. Pretty weak argument and broad as hell. They're piercings, it's not that deep. Get over yourself. The reasons these kind of rules are instilled is because either the school wants you to dress formally and smart, or they don't want you to come into school with an appearance that may distract other students. The second reason's kind of bullshit. They made the same argument for makeup at my high school. Hair gel was fine though. Despite all that, there are times in life when you just have to be real with yourself. You aren't being oppressed just because you're not allowed to wear piercings at school. You aren't being oppressed just because you have to wear business attire at work. You need to learn about compromise and discipline to function in the world.
School's meant to prepare you for the real world.
I know I sound like evil Hope Haddon now, but is it going to get to the point where a toddler will claim they're being oppressed because they can't bring their toys to school? Or kindergarten or fucking nursery or whatever it's called. So not long after Haddock enforces these ghastly rules that take me right back to Nazi Germany, she also mandates new school uniforms and makes wearing them compulsory.
School uniforms will be introduced on campus from next week. They are compulsory and it's non-negotiable.
So just like a normal British school. This is really ironic because this is just how things would have been anyway if the show wasn't pastiching American high school. Oh, maybe all us British kids have been oppressed all this time. We didn't even know it.
We are also cracking down on jewellery, piercings, hair dye, and any non-regulation uniform.
It's trying to be dead dramatic with these shots of the speakerphones and all the students reacting.
And it's non-negotiable.
I think my soul just died.
For me, this moment just served to demonstrate how spoilt these students were that this ruling is such a startling concept. Before Head Clinton announced the new uniform, she was reading a book about student identity, self-expression, student individuality, etc., all the while scoffing and rolling her eyes. These are the values that Hope Haddon, as the antagonist, is supposed to be attacking. Values that are extremely broad and probably near impossible to keep track of as someone working in the education industry. This is her her main shtick. This is what makes her the villain. She doesn't acknowledge or respect the students' need to express themselves in any way they see fit. Because this self-identity stuff is so incredibly loose in concept, even the smallest insignificant rule could be seen as oppressive to any of these ultra-specific examples of student self-expression. And that's why this show behaves as if these very reasonable school rules are tyrannical and subjugating. They just haven't given any of this subject matter a good amount of thought. If not being able to wear whatever you want at school is going to mentally ail you so much, you need to grow the fuck up. You have no concept of compromise or sacrifice. Later on in episode 4, we get to some stuff that's a little more threatening. So Haddon holds these sex education seminars, teaching abstinence to the students. The boys watch an archaic video that teaches them about the dangers of homosexual sex and STDs. You see where this is going?
Homosexual activities have a much higher rate of leading to sexually transmitted diseases. AIDS, AIDS, AIDS.
Homophobia is bad. Thank you, sex education, for reminding me. For the girls, they wheel in a cliche straw woman argument. Don't have sex when you're a teenager, it'll ruin your life. Condoms don't always work, you know.
I went from having dreams to having a 6-month-old baby that left me with a leaky bladder and a baggy vagina.
Scaring students like this is obviously wrong. They did this at my school. They had performers come in and do plays about teenagers accidentally getting pregnant because the condom only had a 98% chance of stopping the sperm or some shit. Maybe true, I don't fucking know. The way sex education have recreated this true-to-life stuff isn't subtle or original. I'm still not gonna give it props for that. It's still shit storytelling.
I believe teenagers shouldn't have sex because sex will ruin your life forever.
It's so obvious in its satirical nature.
You should be telling us how to do that safely, not telling us to refrain from being sexually active, because it doesn't fucking work.
That was some nice delivery. It's still preachy.
And we shouldn't be shamed for having sexual desires. You make sex sound terrifying, but it doesn't have to be.
I just wish they hadn't had to use a straw woman to get that out.
Because it doesn't fucking work.
Okay. Out.
Perhaps I was wrong to distrust.
Is the boys' class being taught about pregnancy as well, or is it just us girls? It's just us, is it? Very progressive.
It's because boys don't have fucking wombs. What a pseudo-progressive comment. Honestly, get your head out your fucking arse. Obviously ignoring the specific content of the seminars, let's just say it was about what happens to the female body when you give birth. Yes, boys don't need to know as much about that as the girls do. Boys have penises, girls have vaginas. They are different. Separating boys and girls into two different classrooms when educating them about sex isn't segregation. I've got a penis, believe it or not, and I want to go in the class that specialises in how to use it. Before the seminars started, we had this scene about the girls and boys lines.
For today's SRE class, boys will be in this classroom and girls in this one.
That's the thing with this show. You can just smell the hot topic pandering political issues coming a mile away.
Can we please form 2 orderly lines, please?
2 very rigid and oppressive orderly lines, please.
Where do I go?
Here it comes. No, no.
So Cal wants to know what line they should join.
Boys in this classroom and girls in this one.
But I'm non-binary.
I don't know which line either.
People are going to think I'm alt-right after this. I forgot to mention that there's an albino, I mean a non-binary character in the show.
But we don't fit into the description of boy or girl, so where are we supposed to go?
They'll be discussing female anatomy in this class, which I'm sure will be helpful for you.
Right, so we're supposed to go to the vagina line or the penis line, is that what you're saying?
Oh, such cutting wits, but yeah, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. Ignoring the archaic nature of the seminars in question now, I'd understand the confusion if you were a hermaphrodite or post-op or someone that had neither penis or vagina, but in this particular instance, when you are learning about your reproductive organs, what physical appendages you possess does factor into this. I've not said a thing out of turn there. This is about gender biology, not gender personality traits.
It's okay, I don't want to cause any trouble.
This is complete bullshit.
Let's now fast forward to episode 6. We get this punishment scene in which 3 students are disciplined. Reddit girl, non-binary girl, oh shit. But I mean, come on, and my boy Adam Groff. During an assembly, the 3 of them are all sat in front of the entire year and forced to wear big shame cards detailing their crimes against humanity.
I am a slovenly troublemaker.
A little louder, please.
I am a slovenly troublemaker who doesn't care about my peers.
This is fucked up.
This is obviously extremely messed up, but other than reminding me of a really funny sketch from Curb Your Enthusiasm, in context with the rest of the script, this is fucking retarded. There was no proper build up to this point, no natural escalation of rules that got more and more rigid. It's rushed and completely out of left field. There was no clever way of actually making Hope Haddon an overbearing figure, so they just abruptly turned her into Nurse Ratchet overnight.
Enough!
Sit down.
It's supposed to be school, not somewhere we should be afraid.
Okay,
You're suspended.
And also, all of this takes away from the more pressing issue of the scene. These students didn't deserve this archaic shaming, but at least with the case for these two students, they still deserve some form of punishment. Adam's taken the rap for someone else, but for all everyone else knows, he caused a car crash. A fucking car crash! Do you realise how much shit you'd be in for that at your average British high school? And rightly fucking so. That is horrendous. Someone could have died. It's a fucking family. But because it was a funny poo gag, it's passed off as innocent and whimsical. You can't just ignore all of that just to aid your one-dimensional anti-education message. Okay, so right about now in this video, I talked about how Reddit girl should have expected some kind of consequence from entering a erotic piece of literature into a high school writing competition, but turns out it isn't a high school writing competition, it's just a general writing competition. So she doesn't deserve the punishment, or any form of punishment, so it's just Adam who deserves some kind of punishment here. That being said though, she goes all depressed and morbid after this because she feels like she's been shamed for all this sexy stuff that she writes about. And I thought that that was quite a weak subplot because, one, it's high school and teenagers will just take the piss because they're not mature when it comes to sex stuff, particularly when it's weird shit like aliens involved as well. Erotic fiction like that is just inherently funny. That whole side of the show just holds her erotic writing up on this profound pedestal. Your self-expression, whatever that is, isn't being stunted because you have to leave your passion projects at home whilst you attend school and or work. That's called life. Again, with the toddlers and toys comparison. And yeah, if you are going to write stuff like that and be so open about it, people are going to take the piss. Teenagers don't take sex stuff like this seriously. Also, the internet exists. You write erotic fiction. The internet exists. You write erotic fiction. The internet exists. It's the same with the whole wall of cock bit. Don't take it down, it's art, it's history.
It's the best period titties I ever drew.
You're not going to paint over the wall of cock, are you?
It's not oppressing the students to say you can't draw cocks all over the school grounds. You're giving all this profundity to fucking teenagers drawing dicks just to piss off the teachers. It's not an expression of their sexuality, it's just them taking the piss. If you started allowing students to draw dicks everywhere, they'd stop doing it because they'd get bored. They'd just find something else to do that's not allowed at school. Later in episode 6...
You're our head girl. And having a strong, smart, young woman of colour leading the way shows how progressive we are as a school.
So it's about how it looks.
Is this a meta-commentary on how Netflix used black actors to look progressive? What a bunch of hypocritical cunts.
Will you be coming to student forum?
Why would I want to come and listen to a bunch of teenagers whinging on about their insignificant problems for an hour?
Oh, that was a little bit harsh. Partially coming from somewhere true, though.
I've had quite enough of this navel-gazing, identity-obsessed hysteria for one day. The quicker you and your fragile, petty little peers realise that you're not that special.
Dang, I kind of agree with her here.
And that the real world doesn't care about your supposed issues, the better.
Again, this misses the point. She's being used to say all teenage problems are insignificant, and then the show argues back with every single teenage problem is extremely significant. Both are extremes and neither are true. The truth of the matter lies in between these two extremes, a grey area. But if there's one thing sex education doesn't understand, it's grey areas. Teenagers can be dumb, grumpy and whingy, and not all of their petty whims should be indulged and taken with the utmost seriousness. Just because Hope is wrong here, that doesn't mean the students are right. This show is holding one extreme up as the immoral stance and another extreme up as the absolute righteous cause. Let's do a nice little comparison. When Always Sunny tackles big controversial issues such as guns and abortion, they always use different members of the gang to represent the two extreme ends of said political argument. Throughout the course of the episode, both sides of the political spectrum are equally ridiculed but also partially celebrated and sympathised with. By the end of the episode, the gang often come together and meet in the middle. They don't really have a solid solution to the issue, and that's sort of the point. No singular individual has the absolute answers to these infinitely complex situations. So back to Sex Education Season 3. We get a toxic masculinity awareness ad with this flashback of Mr. Groff's childhood.
Terrible, Dad, terrible.
You're supposed to stop it.
I think Michaela's crying, Dad.
What? Why are you crying? You're a boy. Boys don't cry.
Such an original lens that this is being envisioned through. I actually feel like I'm watching the upbringing of a real individual.
Boys don't cry.
It's so awful and ham-fisted. It reminds me of that fucking Gillette advert. No identity behind the messages of this show.
I'd rather have my corporations greedy than virtuous. I think it's more trustworthy.
Dad, wait, he was just different from my mum.
He was a straw man argument. Oh yeah, Eric. What's Eric up to? I like Eric. He's in Nigeria. Isn't it illegal to be gay there?
Isn't it illegal illegal to be gay in Nigeria?
Yeah.
Fuck, that's gonna be tense. Like that bar scene in Inglourious Basterds where they have to pose as German soldiers. He has to hide his sexuality there just for safety and practicality. He doesn't tell his grandma because she's just so old anyway. At that point, you can't blame people for having old sketchy worldviews because they've just lived through so much cultural change already. So I understand that storyline.
Eric is dating someone. I told him not to tell you until he knew it was serious.
What is she like?
I was just thinking it would have been really funny if just as Eric was about to leave Nigeria, he just says to his grandma, "I'm gay!" In episode 7, Haddock locks non-binary Bessie in a room after getting physical with her.
Let me go!
That's fooked. But remember, she became a Nazi overnight, so anything could happen from this point forward. We never know, she could have Isaac gassed next.
They will receive their education on a safe and sex-free campus.
Like, if she means sex-free campus as in, like, no one having sex on campus, that's fine, right? That's reasonable. Have I gone crazy?
Sex-free campus where inappropriate behaviour
fuck in the bushes.
Like, yeah, people having sex in the bushes is funny and it works for that stupid American Pie shit you're going for. But now you're taking a moral stance behind that? I might be wrong, I might be reading into things.
But there's no shame, stigma, or fear.
It's all vague bullshit. There's no philosophy behind anything that's being said.
And sadly, schools have taught a lot of people to feel ashamed of their identities and bodies. The cycle continues today.
But come on, what is the argument here? Do you want to have the right to discuss sex at school for educational reasons? Because it seems like you think that school should be entirely about sex. Like dicks and fannies out in the hallway, shagging on the desks during lessons. Maybe I'm just not with the times, maybe having orgies at school is perfectly reasonable these days. Fuck do I know about any of this sex stuff? I collect Lego for Christ's sake.
And the students of sex school are proud of the things that some people would like to shame us for.
Like there are teachers shagging in the school during open times. I didn't think anything of it because I thought you were going for that American Pie thing again. But if you want to talk about the real world for a minute, that shit's fucked up. It's a sexual harassment scandal just waiting to happen. Like if they got caught doing that and they got fired, would the show take a stance like, oh, you can't do that, that's slut shaming, you're oppressing them just because of their sexuality? Like, no, that's really fucked. What the fuck is the message? Like having a department for the subject is fine, but it's not supposed to dominate school life as a whole.
Sucking on my titties like you wanted me, calling me.
What the students are promoting is just another extreme. Hope is, or is at least supposed to be, advocating for absolute formality at school, when the students are advocating for absolute informality at school. Sex education seems to push this idea that young teens are always in the right and adults are always in the wrong. Any rule is evil and oppressive. Kids should be allowed to do anything they want at school. Any adult who tries to stop them is acting immorally and should be scrutinized immediately. Self-confidence and self-expression are important to a teenager's growing up, but so is discipline and compromise. What this show is promoting, whether intentionally or not, is the idea that self-expression and confidence should trump all other authority. You can't inhibit the students in any way, shape or form because that's oppression. The rest of the world must pander to the preferences of one. That's what the boys call a narcissistic victim complex. The school environment that's being suggested here is ironically oppressive from the students' end.
We are taking over.
The only teachers who are painted in a positive light in this show are these two morons who are essentially slaves to the students. They just go along with whatever the students want. Gerard here is a terrible teacher with no assertiveness, no student respects him, he can't control the teenagers. If this guy taught at a real school, he'd get destroyed. I had a few teachers like him at my school. Students' pets, pandering to us and trying to be our friend. No one respected these people. They could never control the class and people would constantly talk over them. But I'm obviously wrong because this show holds Gerard up as the ideal male teacher.
Yeah, whoa, girls, why is there a goat on campus?
She's mine and Steve's commitment animal.
Right, you didn't think of a hamster?
Don't be all nasty and masculine like Mr. Groff. Ooh, masculinity. It's never good. Always toxic. Oh, it's fine in women though because, yeah, feminism, woohoo, but never in men.
Is someone going to take over?
Maybe you should apply, sir.
Yeah, that's a bad fucking idea right there.
No, I'm serious.
Miss Timms is a little more assertive, but is essentially just another one of the girls and doesn't really interfere with them. This all brings me to my next cunting point. Sorry, there are a lot of points in this video. The youths of this series don't expect to be disciplined in any way, shape or form.
Sir, I need to take Goat out for a wee.
Right, fine. Go on.
Fuck the pain away. Fuck the pain away.
Excuse me. Hi.
It's the best period titties I ever drew.
You're not going to paint over the wall of cock, are you?
Watch out! We run New York. Policeman come.
I'm not wearing a skirt.
It's this message of never ever discipline the students because it might hurt their feelings. School is far from a perfect institution, but in principle, it's a place you go to learn not only a broad stretch of useful knowledge, but also discipline, compromise, sacrifice, obedience, and in general how to work hard. You learn these things because you need them to healthily and economically function in the world.
And listen, while we're at it, there are systems for a reason in this world. Economic stability, interest rates, growth. It's not all a conspiracy to keep you in little boxes.
You'll face a lot of adversity in life, so high school should have its fair share of adversity training. But when you utter words like discipline and obedience, dumb, narrow-minded footbags immediately picture shit like this.
Fall out!
People seem to think that discipline in and of itself is wrong, when in fact discipline is essential to growing up and fully developing as a person. But of course, now talking specifically about teachers disciplining students, it can go wrong if not properly conducted. Sex education is not a study of when discipline is misused. It's closer to a full-on condemnation of discipline as a whole. But now we're going to take a look at a piece of media that critiques the malevolent manifestation of discipline and authority in the education system in a natural, artistic and thoughtful way. 1982 saw the release of the movie Pink Floyd's The Wall, a film adaptation of the conceptual album The Wall, and it's fucking brilliant. Now this film/album critiques a whole variety of things as it follows the life story of character Pink Floyd, starting from his childhood in a post-World War II Britain, all the way to his adult life as a disenchanted, drug-addicted rock star. It's heavily based on the real-life story of Pink Floyd frontman Roger Waters, who grew up amidst the heavily industrialised landscape of 1940s/50s British schooling. The collective psyche of the English nation had been irreversibly scourged by the events of the Second World War. It was both a mental and economic depression. Amidst Britain's desperate grappling to salvage the economy, in a lot of cases schools had to essentially become factories that took in free-thinking students and moulded them into vacuous robotic industry workers, meat to feed the British economy. Ridding them all of individuality, schools promoted and allowed only singular male and female personas. The childbearing, husband-pleasing, stay-at-home wife, and the strong, gruff, masculine and hard-labouring man. So for those men who are much more in touch with their feminine sides or a little more sensitive, whose passions lay elsewhere such as poetry and music, life was extremely rigid. Such interests were most likely highly stigmatised and discouraged at most schools. To make matters worse, you had all of these teachers left traumatised by the war, who had become hardened, embittered, resentful shells. So when we look at this scene from the Pink Floyd movie,
poems, no less. Poems, everybody! The laddie reckons himself a poet. Absolute rubbish, laddie. Get on with your work.
it's coming from not only a factual place but a personal place, as this was literally Roger Waters' life experience at school. It's an empathetic story of an individual student, not an endorsement of a broad pop political ideology. The film's world is established and designed to be partially exaggerated, allegorical and over the top. It's a surrealist piece tugging on a very real emotion embedded in the British psyche of the time. When the students burn the school down, this isn't the movie inciting violence. It's a cathartic meditation that any child who's been bullied by a tyrannical adult can find therapy through. The education system of the time had manifested into an extreme, rigid, resentful, malevolent institution, and denouncing that through storytelling and allegory is one of the very things that art was created for. They aren't denouncing the education system as a whole, they are highlighting where it can and has gone awfully wrong, where it's been abused and perverted to become something that does more damage to society than good. The school depicted in Pink Floyd's The Wall is an isolated, exaggerated, archetypal extreme evil, so depicting it being abolished is a morally righteous endeavour, like the Death Star being destroyed. The issue with sex education is there is no metaphor or allegory at play here. It's supposed to be more representative of the real world. There's some exaggeration and cartoon-like logic, usually in service of the comedic aspects of the show, but the characters are supposed to be seen in a way that's more grounded in reality.
Thanks for the tea, Joe. I better go. Don't want to be late for my first day.
Look, if you're not going to finish your tea, at least take your lunch with you.
So it makes it all the more jarring when Mrs. Haddock goes all Mein Kampf on everyone. And obviously there's no sincerity to the messages they're putting forward.
So if you agree that communication and empathy are better tools than silence and shame...
The show's, quote, philosophy is fiercely aligned with one end of the political spectrum, rather than having a balanced and open-minded viewpoint encompassing the grand scope of all the issues. It's a naive renouncement of discipline, masculinity, authority and patriarchal figures that puts forward an ill-informed and ultra-simplistic message of authority bad, a message that's closer in extremity and rigidity to the doctrines of the Pink Floyd school than the showrunners would like to believe. We don't need no sex education.
Does this mean you and Otis might actually finally get together?
We now veer closer toward the conclusion of the season. Episode 7. Maeve is confused. She doesn't know if she loves Isaac or Otis, or both, for that matter. Isaac makes things easier for her and just says, "I'm out, I was commanded so by the showrunners."
So with respect, I'm taking my heart off the table. Good luck finding your mum.
Mein Haddon is finally foiled once and for all by the virtuous students. They have this assembly where they show an overtly sexual video. It hits all the same beats as the Sex musical from the season 2 finale.
Please, they have vaginas on their heads. Stop the show! Stop! The show is over! Whoa!
How did you let this happen?
I'm going to stop the video.
Do it quickly. Whatever you do, don't make a scene.
Only it's far less meaningful here because Hope Haddon as a villain is underdeveloped. There's this really dramatic battle in the control room. It's fucking sick. Haddon tries to stop the video, but Ruby comes and fights her. Oh shit, Ruby, you're still here. She's had nothing to do for the latter half of the season. She'd fulfilled her role within the Otis and Maeve love triangle. The script was done with her and they had nothing left for her to do, so they just made her do this for the season's climactic moment, just so it didn't seem like she'd completely disappeared. It's such a random moment, and her motivations for doing this are never explained. Haddon is fired. Meanwhile, Maeve has to chase down her mum, who's trying to run off with the little sister. This plot line, for the most part, just repeats the exact same beats as the season 2 finale, with the child services coming in to take the child.
You did this. I know you've been using it against her, don't lie. She's not safe. You can't stay clean. Doesn't make you a bad person. Just Elsie needs someone in her life who isn't using.
It's just a poor excuse for drama, and repetitive and boring. But if you thought that was bad, Jean goes into labour, gives birth, but then hemorrhages.
Oh, something's wrong.
What's happening here?
Please step outside.
Oh shit, she might die. That is fucking ridiculous. Are you fucking kidding me? You really couldn't think of anything else to create tension. It's utterly out of left field. An unforgivably lazy catalyst for drama. Meanwhile, Maeve and Otis finally kiss because Isaac's been Thanos snapped and they're both single Pringles now. And now here we are. Episode 8, the last episode. So because Jean might be dying, this episode is populated with some tense and emotional hospital waiting room scenes. At precisely 16 minutes 30 seconds, another poor fellow is turned into a straw man.
Will you be long? I just want to get back at hula hoops. Excuse me?
Just one last time before the season ends. We get a sequence with Maureen and Amy mucking about in the Milburn residence. They leave the goat inside along with the keys, so they have to climb back in or something. Again, tone deaf, unfunny, tiresome. At this point, this can't be anything other than filler. Back at the hospital, Jean's fine, obviously.
Genocidal surgery.
The whole thing was just a huge manipulative trick on the audience. There's no point to any of this, no emotional human story behind it. It's just one arbitrary catalyst for drama or conflict after the other. Who fucking cares? It's not even a good show. You don't need to watch this. It's so skippable. Go watch Euphoria for fuck's sake. Eric dumps Adam after an entire season of falling out for the same reasons over and over again.
We're gonna break up, aren't we?
I think we have to.
Yeah.
Hope bumps into Otis at the hospital and is sad because she can't get pregnant, no matter how many different treatments she has. Otis consoles and therapizes her. This whole infertility thing is a pitiful attempt at fleshing out Hope's character. This one-note vulnerability of hers to make us go, oh no, but she's actually sad herself because she's got her own life problems.
You have no idea what it's like to wake up to the feeling of failure every morning.
It's tastelessly done, and because it's so blatantly put forward, it seems as though the show is saying that all infertile women are resentful and mean.
I've been trying to get pregnant for 3 years. I'm currently trying to start another round of IVF.
Well, I hope it works out for you.
It won't. It won't.
She just isn't a properly defined character, and I hate it when storytellers try and abruptly make a villain three-dimensional and sympathetic by throwing something like this in. Back to HBO, look no further than Game of Thrones for the golden standard of fleshing out an antagonist. Adam also has his dog competition thingy. That's actually a good sequence, it feels sincere. I don't doubt Adam's passion for dogs. The actor who plays him does a really good job at fleshing Adam out and making him sympathetic and likeable. Adam's a really good character. The 8th comes. Oh, I forgot about the 8th. The 8th cometh. Basically, Reddit girl and a bunch of other retards online are keeping track of crop circles and they think that aliens are going to come and visit soon on a certain date at a certain location. This date arrives on the season finale. Do we see aliens? No, do we fuck?
Lily, look. Oh, wow.
Imagine if aliens did actually show up though, like full-on aliens with a whole Netflix budget behind them, making them actually look really convincing. What a brilliant way of ending the season that would have been. Imagine the scenes in season 4 now that aliens had been introduced. If aliens had landed and Jean had actually died, that would have redeemed the whole season, the whole show. But nah, that's not the case. One can only dream. Oh, but at least Maeve and Otis are finally together. Finally, the show stopped blueballing us.
If you decide to not go to America and make your disgustingly big brain even bigger.
Oh, what's this? What's going on here now?
If I was going to miss out on an opportunity for a boy, what would you tell me?
No, hang on here now. You're not really gonna...
I've changed my mind.
About what?
America. I found the money, so I'm going.
You can't be serious.
So this is goodbye?
No, it's see you soon.
And the will they, won't they blue balling continues. This show is just treating the audience like a load of dumb cunts now. You gotta realise that, surely. Fuck off Netflix, seriously. Fuck you.
Here we go again. Again.
Off this image, slowly fading to black. End of series.
And here we are, it's the end of that long-winded review. In conclusion, I've not got much else to say other than don't watch this. You don't need to watch this. This is not a recommendation. It's not essential. At the very best, it's a middling show. It's not worthy of your time. I don't want you to watch this. I wanted to make this long review so you could feel like you'd kind of seen the show along with me, whilst I criticised it and like we're both having a laugh, like, oh, look at this shit show. I don't want you to go and watch it now, but it's #1 in the fucking UK anyway, so who cares? It's already done its worst. It's already won. It's already beaten us. In no way, shape or form is this something important to see. So if you haven't already, don't watch it. Watch Euphoria, watch Big Little Lies, watch The Sopranos, watch Curb Your Enthusiasm, watch Stranger Things, watch Mindhunter, watch Ozark, watch Squid Game, watch South Park, watch Arrested Development, watch Always Sunny Again, watch Spaced, watch Better Call Saul, watch Breaking Bad again, watch Twin Peaks, watch SpongeBob, watch Mr. Robot, watch fucking Pingu. For those who have got this far, I really hope you've had some fun watching these videos. I like doing it. It was a little bit of a passion project. Anyway, that's about it. That about does it.